The massive observation ship hung silently in the dark space behind Earth's moon, its advanced cloaking systems making it invisible to human detection. Inside the ship's main conference room, Ambassador Gray's hands shook slightly as he organized his data tablets. After 30 years of studying Earth, he had to present his findings to the Galactic Council, and he knew they wouldn't like what he had to say. The council members filed into the room one by one. They were different shapes and sizes, but they all moved with the careful grace of species evolved on gentle worlds. Some floated on anti-gravity platforms, their bodies too fragile for walking. Others wore protective suits against what they considered the ship's harsh environment, even though it was specially adjusted for their comfort. Gray stood at the front of the room, his large eyes blinking nervously. The council leader, a tall, willowy being with silvery skin, spoke first. "Ambassador, you called this emergency meeting. Please explain why." "Honored council members," Gray began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. 30 years ago, we discovered Earth and began our standard observation process. Today, I must report that we have made a serious mistake in our calculations. Earth is not a standard life-bearing world. It is a Class 12 death world. The room erupted in shocked whispers. One council member actually fell off their anti-gravity platform. The council leader raised a hand for silence, but even they couldn't hide their disbelief. Impossible. Nothing survives on a Class 12 world. Gray touched his data tablet, and a hologram of Earth appeared in the center of the room. The evidence is undeniable. Earth has gravity 1.5 times higher than standard habitable worlds. Its atmosphere is thick with oxygen, a highly reactive and dangerous element. The temperature swings from freezing to burning, sometimes in the same day. The planet experiences regular natural disasters, storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. The oceans cover most of the surface with corrosive salt water. And yet, he changed the hologram to show scenes from Earth. Humans running in a marathon under the burning sun. Children playing in snow. Farmers working fields in heavy rain. Rescue workers pulling survivors from earthquake rubble. Cities rebuilt after hurricanes. The humans don't just survive these conditions. They thrive in them. Their bodies are dense with muscle and bone, evolved to handle the crushing gravity. Their lungs process oxygen that would poison most species. They can survive temperature ranges that would kill any other known intelligent life form. Their immune systems fight off millions of pathogens daily. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. The council leader leaned forward. "If what you say is true, why bring this to us now? We could simply continue to avoid contact." Gray changed the hologram again, showing human scientific achievements. "Because they're advancing too quickly. Our projections show they will discover faster than light travel within the next decade. And when they do..." He paused, letting the implications sink in. A council member wearing an environmental suit spoke up, their voice distorted through filters. "They could spread throughout the galaxy. These Deathworlders could go anywhere." "Exactly," Gray said. "But there's more." He showed new images, humans helping injured animals, doctors saving lives, rescue teams rushing toward danger instead of away from it. Despite evolving in conditions we consider horrific, humans have developed something remarkable: empathy. They help not just their own kind, but any living thing they see suffering. They mourn species that go extinct. They work to preserve ecosystems. The council chamber fell silent as the members watched humans risking their lives to save others from disasters. Gray continued, "We have two choices. We can try to contain them, which I believe would be both impossible and morally wrong, or we can make peaceful contact. Guide them. Learn from them. Because while we may fear their capabilities, we may also need them." The council leader was quiet for a long moment. "Need them? Explain." "The galaxy is not always a safe place," Gray said. "When disasters strike our colonies, we often can't help because conditions are too dangerous. These humans, they're built for danger. They don't just survive it. They run toward it to help others. Yes, they're scary. Yes, they're powerful. But they could be the greatest allies we've ever found. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some members demanded immediate quarantine of Earth. Others wanted to study humans more before deciding. A few agreed with Gray about making contact. As the debate raged, Gray looked at the hologram still showing Earth. Soon, humanity would reach for the stars. The only question was whether they would do it as friends or enemies of the galactic community. He hoped the council would make the right choice. Jack Thompson stood at the window of the Colorado Mountain facility, watching the snowfall. 6 months had passed since the aliens revealed themselves to humanity, and sometimes he still couldn't believe he'd been chosen as one of Earth's representatives. The former Marine turned xenobiologist took a sip of his coffee, remembering the day everything changed. He had been teaching a survival course in the Amazon rainforest when the aliens made first contact. While governments around the world panicked, Jack had simply gathered his students and finished the 2-week course. After all, knowing how to survive in harsh conditions was even more important now that humanity knew they weren't alone. A soft chime from the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, not turning from the window. The door whispered open, and he heard the distinctive sound of an environmental suit's service. "Professor Thompson," came the filtered voice of Ambassador Gray. "Are you ready for today's meeting?" Jack turned, carefully holding back a smile at the sight of the alien in his bulky protective gear. The ambassador looked like a deep-sea diver crossed with a praying mantis, wrapped in layers of technical equipment, just to survive Earth's normal atmosphere. "Ready as I'll ever be," Jack said, taking another sip of his coffee. He noticed Gray's slight flinch at the sight of the steaming liquid. The aliens had been horrified to learn that humans regularly consumed caffeine, which was apparently lethal to most galactic species. They walked together to the conference room, Gray moving with careful steps despite the suit's stabilizers. The facility had been built specifically for these meetings, with separate atmospheric controls for each section. Still, the aliens preferred their suits, not trusting human engineering with their safety. Inside, 3 other aliens waited with Jack's team. Dr. Anna Miller, the atmospheric scientist, was explaining Earth's weather patterns to a very nervous alien researcher. Captain Robert Lee, their security expert, stood quietly in the corner. Dr. Maria Garcia, the medical officer, was setting up her presentation about human biology. "Let's begin," Jack said, taking his seat. "Today we're discussing emergency protocols for various Earth environments. We need to establish safe zones and danger zones for our guests." Dr. Miller stepped forward, bringing up a holographic globe. "As you can see, Earth's weather systems are quite dynamic. In a single day, we might experience..." She was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning. Atmospheric containment breach in Sector 7. Environmental systems failing." The aliens froze in terror. Jack's team sprang into action immediately. "Everyone stay calm," he ordered, checking the readouts on his tablet. "The backup systems are engaging, but we need to evacuate this section. Dr. Miller, help Ambassador Gray. Captain Lee, take the rear. Dr. Garcia, lead the way to the safe room." As they moved through the corridors, Jack remembered similar situations during his Marine days, evacuating civilians from natural disasters, leading teams through dangerous territory. The only difference was that now their civilians were from another planet. They reached the safe room just as the facility's systems stabilized. The aliens huddled together, their environmental suits registering the stress on their bodies even from this minor incident. Jack's team, meanwhile, was already running diagnostics and coordinating repairs. "This," Gray said suddenly, his voice shaking, "this is why we fear you." Everyone turned to look at him. The ambassador's large eyes blinked rapidly. "Not because you are dangerous, but because you are impossible. We just experienced what our species would consider a life-threatening emergency. Your team treated it like a minor inconvenience. You didn't panic. You didn't freeze. You just handled it. Jack thought about that. To his team, this had been a simple evacuation drill, hardly worth remembering. To the aliens, it had been a brush with death. He remembered teaching survival courses, showing students how to handle snakes, build shelters, find water. Basic skills to him were life-changing revelations to others. Ambassador, he said carefully, that's exactly why we need to work together. What's dangerous to you is normal to us. What's normal to you might be dangerous to us. But together, he smiled, together we can help each other survive anything. The aliens looked at each other, then at the humans calmly going about their work. Perhaps, Jack thought, they were finally beginning to understand. Earth's harsh conditions hadn't made humans dangerous. They had made humans strong. And strength, used wisely, could protect as well as destroy. Dr. Blue stared at the medical readings in front of him, double-checking every number. After 3 months of studying human biology, he still couldn't believe what he was seeing. In the next room, a human athlete was running on a treadmill, her vital signs displaying on his screens. According to his instruments, she should have died 10 minutes ago. The runner, a marathon champion, had been exercising for 2 hours straight. Her heart pumped what should have been fatal amounts of oxygen through her body. She was covered in a cooling liquid that her species called sweat, a feature that still amazed him. Most importantly, she was smiling. Impossible, he muttered, his third eye blinking rapidly in confusion. A soft chime announced the arrival of Ambassador Gray. More surprises? Gray asked, moving carefully in his environmental suit. Even after months on Earth, none of them could risk exposure to the planet's harsh atmosphere. Look at these readings, Blue pointed to his screens. Her muscles are literally tearing and repairing themselves as she runs. She's burning energy at rates that would kill any sensible species. Her core temperature would cook most of our organs. And she's doing this for fun. The runner waved at them through the observation window, still maintaining her steady pace. Blue waved back automatically, his scientific mind racing. Did you know, he said, that humans regularly break their bones during childhood development? Their skeletal structure is constantly destroying and rebuilding itself, getting stronger each time. It's a response to their planet's crushing gravity. Gray moved closer to the window. What about their immune system? Have you made progress understanding it? Blue brought up a new set of scans. Their immune system is terrifying. It's like they have an army inside their bodies, constantly at war. They're attacked by millions of pathogens every day, things that would kill us instantly. But their bodies fight back. They adapt. They remember every attack and get stronger. The runner finished her session and stepped off the treadmill, barely breathing hard. Blue's instruments showed her body already beginning its recovery process, repairing damage that would be fatal to his species. Watch this, Blue said, pulling up a video from his earlier research. It showed a time-lapse of a human healing from a cut. See how their body immediately begins repairs. They can regenerate damaged tissue, rebuild broken bones, even restore some damaged organs. And here's the truly remarkable part. They do this automatically, without any medical intervention. A human doctor entered the exercise room to check on the runner. Blue watched them chat and laugh together, remembering his first shocking discovery about human medical professionals. Their doctors, he said quietly, deliberately cut open other humans, remove damaged parts, and seal them back up. And the humans survive this. They call it surgery, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Gray's environmental suit made a soft humming sound as it processed the room's air. What about their adaptability to different environments? The Council is particularly concerned about that. Blue changed the display to show a global map. Humans can survive in almost any environment on their planet. They live in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They climb mountains where the air is too thin to breathe. They explore deep oceans under crushing pressure. They've even built cities in places we would consider completely uninhabitable. He brought up more data. They eat foods that would poison us. They drink chemicals that would melt our organs. Their young play in conditions that would kill our strongest warriors. And they do all this without any genetic engineering or technological assistance. It's just how they evolved. The runner left the exercise room, and Blue watched her vital signs return to what humans considered normal. "But here's what fascinates me most," he said. "Despite all this incredible durability, they remain surprisingly gentle. They can control their strength. They've learned to be careful with more fragile species. They're powerful enough to crush us accidentally, yet they take great care not to harm us." Gray nodded slowly. "So they're not just surviving their death world. They've mastered it." "Exactly," Blue said, saving his latest findings. "Every day I discover something new about them that should be impossible. But perhaps that's the point. Humans don't seem to believe in impossible things. They just keep pushing, adapting, surviving." He looked at his screens again. Maybe that's what makes them so remarkable. Not just their physical capabilities, but their refusal to accept limitations. Intelligence Officer White moved silently through the diplomatic station's corridors, his protective suit making less noise than most. As head of security analysis for the Military Council, he had spent the last 3 months gathering evidence. Today, he would present his findings about the human threat. The observation room overlooked the station's main gathering area. Below, a group of humans mingled with various alien species during what they called a cultural exchange. White activated his recording devices and watched. A human diplomat laughed at something an alien said, then took a drink from their cup. White's sensors immediately identified the liquid, coffee, containing enough caffeine to kill 3 members of his species instantly. The human didn't just survive drinking the poison. They seemed to enjoy it. Another human was sharing their food with curious aliens, carefully warning them about something called spicy. White's chemical analysis confirmed his fears. The humans were casually consuming capsaicin, a substance classified as a chemical weapon in most of the galaxy. "Quite disturbing, isn't it?" came a voice behind him. Another security officer, Green, joined him at the window. "Have you seen the human entertainment records?" White nodded grimly. He had spent weeks analyzing human movies and sports. He'd watched humans jumping from high places for fun, fighting each other in regulated combat sports, and racing vehicles at deadly speeds. Their entertainment was filled with stories of wars, disasters, and violence that would traumatize most species. "Look there," Green pointed at a human child who had fallen and scraped their knee. The injury drew blood, but the child barely cried. Within minutes, they were playing again. Their young are already nearly indestructible. Imagine what their soldiers must be like. White brought up his datapad, scrolling through images from human military training. Soldiers running through fire, swimming in freezing water, surviving in wastelands. They train their warriors to endure conditions that would kill most species, he said quietly. And they do this in peacetime, just to be prepared. Below them, a human emergency response team was conducting a demonstration. They wore heavy protective gear and carried rescue equipment that weighed more than some alien species. As White watched, they quickly set up and executed a rescue scenario in conditions that his species would consider lethal. "Here's what worries me most," White said, showing Green another set of data. "They're advancing too quickly. In the last 100 years, they've gone from primitive combustion engines to the brink of faster-than-light travel. They've survived multiple global wars, natural disasters, and plagues that should have wiped them out. Instead, each crisis makes them stronger." Green's protective suit hummed as he processed this information. "Have you seen the reports from their medical research labs? They're already finding ways to help other species survive harsher conditions. Some are calling it a breakthrough. I call it a threat." White nodded. His own research had shown how humans were helping other species become more resilient. On the surface, it seemed benevolent. But he saw the darker implications. Humans were inadvertently creating more Deathworld-capable species. Their empathy makes them more dangerous, not less. White continued. They want to help everyone survive like they do. They don't understand that not every species should be able to endure such conditions. They're disrupting the natural order of the galaxy. Below, the human child who had been injured was now teaching alien children a game involving throwing and catching a ball. The aliens were clumsy, but the human showed infinite patience, carefully controlling their strength to avoid hurting anyone. Look at how they adapt, Green observed. They can be gentle with fragile species or strong enough to survive disasters. They can drink poison for pleasure or help others survive. They're unpredictable. White finished compiling his report. The evidence was clear. Humans were perhaps the most dangerous species ever encountered, not because they were violent, but because they were capable of anything. Their very adaptability made them a threat to the established order of the galaxy. The military council needs to see this, he said finally. We need to act before they spread further, before they change more worlds to be like theirs, before they make more species like them. As they watched, the humans below continued their friendly interactions, unaware they were being observed. White wondered if they even realized how terrifying they were. These creatures who treated deadly poisons as beverages, who played in conditions others feared, who survived what should be fatal, and who wanted to teach others to do the same. The galaxy had survived many threats, but humans were different. They didn't want to conquer or destroy. They wanted to help everyone become more like them. And to White, that was the scariest thing of all. The Galactic Entertainment Center buzzed with nervous energy as Dr. Blue and Ambassador Gray prepared to show their latest research on human culture. The viewing chamber was packed with representatives from various species, all curious about the strange beings from Earth. Are you sure about showing these recordings? Gray asked, adjusting his environmental suit's settings. The military council already thinks humans are too dangerous. This might make things worse. Blue checked the playback settings one final time. They need to understand humans better. Yes, their entertainment seems violent, but there's more to it than that. The lights dimmed, and the first recording began playing. It showed a human adventure sport called skydiving. Several aliens gasped as they watched humans deliberately jump from flying vehicles, falling through the air at terminal velocity. Instead of screaming in terror, the humans were clearly enjoying themselves. This is how they have fun, one alien diplomat whispered, their translator barely catching the shocked words. They throw themselves from the sky. The next recording showed a mountain climbing expedition. Humans scaled frozen cliffs with minimal equipment, fighting against gravity and cold that would kill most species in minutes. They helped each other, secured safety lines, and celebrated at the deadly peak. Blue paused the recording. Notice how they work together. Every dangerous activity has safety protocols, rescue plans, and teamwork. They don't just survive these conditions, they turn them into opportunities to build trust and cooperation. The next segment showed human children playing in a park. They ran, fell, got up, fell again, and kept going. They played games that mimicked hunting, fighting, and survival situations. Several alien observers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "They're young, trained for combat?" asked a security officer. "No," Gray explained. "They play. Through play, they learn to understand their bodies, their limits, and most importantly, how to control their strength. Watch how carefully the larger children handle the smaller ones." The presentation continued with clips from human entertainment media. Movies about natural disasters showed humans running toward danger to save others. Stories about alien invasions always included humans protecting not just themselves, but any friendly aliens they met. Even their war movies focused heavily on sacrifice, loyalty, and protecting the innocent. "Here's what many of you are missing," Blue said, bringing up new data. Humans create this entertainment not to glorify violence, but to explore questions of courage, sacrifice, and moral choices. They imagine worst-case scenarios so they can be better prepared to help others. The next recording showed human emergency workers. They trained constantly, putting themselves in dangerous situations to practice saving lives. They learn to run into burning buildings, dive into rough seas, and enter collapsed structures, all to help strangers. But why? Asked one of the diplomats. Why risk themselves for others? Because they can. Gray answered simply. Their bodies can survive conditions that would kill us. They view this not as a weapon, but as a responsibility. They believe that having the ability to help means having the duty to help. The final recording showed scenes from human hospitals. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to save lives. Humans donated blood and organs to help others survive. They comforted the sick and injured, spent time with the dying, and celebrated every life saved. Yes, humans can be frightening, Blue admitted. They drink poison for pleasure, eat food that would kill us, and play in deadly conditions. But look at how they use their strength. They're not training for war. They're training to protect and save others. Gray stepped forward. Their entertainment seems violent because their whole world is violent. Storms, earthquakes, floods, fires. Earth constantly tries to kill them. But instead of becoming cruel, they've become incredibly protective of life. They know they're stronger than most species, so they've learned to be gentle. They know they can survive almost anything, so they've decided to help others survive too. The lights came back up. The alien observers sat in silence, processing what they'd seen. Earth's entertainment and games might seem terrifying, but they revealed something unexpected about humanity. These creatures, evolved on a Deathworld, had developed not just incredible physical capabilities, but also an equally strong drive to protect others. Perhaps, Blue said quietly, what we see as a death wish is actually a deep love of life. They don't seek danger because they want to die. They face danger because they want others to live. The emergency alarms on Colony Station 7 screamed through every corridor. A massive solar flare, far larger than anything the station's builders had anticipated, was heading directly toward them. The station's shields would fail in less than 6 hours, exposing 10,000 colonists to lethal radiation. The station's commander, a tall crystalline being, had already called for evacuation, but the nearest rescue ships were 12 hours away. In the command center, Ambassador Gray and Dr. Blue watched helplessly as their finest engineers tried and failed to find a solution. The shield generators are already at 200% capacity, one engineer reported, their voice trembling. We can't boost them any further without risking a complete collapse. The station shook as another radiation wave hit. Blue's instruments showed the shield strength dropping steadily. Around them, various alien species worked frantically at their stations, but fear clouded their movements. They weren't built for crisis situations like this. Suddenly, the command center's door slid open. Jack Thompson walked in, followed by his human emergency response team. They had been on the station for a routine cultural exchange program. We heard you have a problem, Jack said, looking at the status displays. His team was already studying the station's schematics on their tablets. The station commander turned all three of their eyes toward the humans. The situation is hopeless. The evacuation ships won't arrive in time, and the shields are failing. Jack's team huddled together, talking quickly and pointing at different parts of the station plans. After a minute, Jack turned back to the commander. We have an idea. Your shields are failing because the generators are overheating. Right. The engineers nodded. The shield generators were housed in 6 towers extending from the station's main body. Even with the best cooling systems in the galaxy, they couldn't handle the intense energy required to block the solar flare. We can fix them, Jack said, but we'll need to go outside. The command center fell silent. Outside. Gray's environmental suit whirred as he processed this. That's impossible. The radiation levels would kill anyone instantly. Jack's team was already pulling equipment from their emergency packs. Our suits can handle the radiation for short periods. We've trained for conditions like this. Each generator needs a manual reset and recalibration to handle the power surge. We can do it. But you'll die. Blue stepped forward, his medical sensors already calculating the lethal exposure levels. "No, we won't," Jack smiled. "Humans are more resistant to radiation than most species. Yes, we'll get sick. Yes, it'll be dangerous, but we can survive long enough to get the job done." The station shook again. More warning lights flashed across the command screens. They were running out of time. The commander looked at the humans, then at their terrified crew. "You would risk your lives for us." "That's what humans do," Jack said simply. His team was already heading for the airlocks, carrying tools and emergency radiation shielding. The next hour was the longest of Gray's life. He watched on the monitors as 6 humans worked outside the station, exposed to radiation that would have killed his species in seconds. Their vital signs were terrible. Elevated heart rates, rising radiation exposure, dangerous body temperatures, but they kept working. One by one, the generators came back online at full power. The humans moved between them with practiced efficiency, their movements sure despite the deadly conditions. They had trained for situations like this, turning Earth's harsh environment into preparation for saving others. When the last human returned through the airlock, the station's shields were operating at 300% capacity, enough to protect everyone until help arrived. The human team was immediately rushed to medical, all of them sick from radiation exposure, but already joking about their adventure. The station commander approached Jack as medical droids treated him. "Why?" they asked. "Why risk everything for people you barely know?" Jack winced as medication was injected into his arm. "Because we could. We're built to survive things that would kill most species. That's not a curse or something to fear. It's a gift, one that lets us help others survive too." Gray and Blue watched from the doorway as the human team received treatment. The same abilities that made humans terrifying. Their resistance to radiation, their ability to function in lethal conditions, their sheer durability, had just saved 10,000 lives. "Perhaps," Blue said quietly, "this is why they evolved on a Deathworld. Not to conquer or destroy, but to become protectors. To be strong enough to help others survive." Outside the station, the solar flare raged on, its deadly radiation harmless against the restored shields. Inside, 10,000 beings lived on, saved by creatures they had once feared. Humans who ran toward danger instead of away from it, who used their strength not for power, but for protection. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked different today. Instead of the usual neat rows of environmental suits and protective bubbles, the space was divided. On one side sat those species still wary of humans. On the other, those who had been saved by them during the Colony Station 7 crisis. In the center, Ambassador Gray prepared to give his final report on humanity. The past month had changed everything. News of the humans' actions had spread across the galaxy. 6 humans had risked their lives to save 10,000 aliens. They had suffered radiation sickness but recovered quickly, their resilient bodies healing in ways that amazed medical scientists. More importantly, they had done it without hesitation. "Honored Council," Gray began, his voice steady. 3 months ago, we debated containing humanity as a threat. Today, I present new evidence about these remarkable beings from Earth. The display screens lit up, showing scenes from the crisis. Humans working in lethal radiation. Their vital signs during the rescue. Their quick recovery afterward. But Gray wasn't focused on these familiar images. Instead, he switched to what happened after. The screens showed humans teaching other species how to handle emergencies. Jack Thompson's team had started a program training alien emergency workers. They developed new safety protocols, protective equipment, and rescue techniques that worked for different species. They weren't just saving others. They were teaching them to save themselves. Yes, humans evolved on what we call a death world. Gray continued. Yes, they can survive conditions that would kill most of us. They drink poison for pleasure, eat food that would be lethal to us, and play in environments we consider deadly. But look at how they use these abilities. The screens changed again, showing human doctors working with alien medical teams. Dr. Blue appeared, explaining how human medical knowledge was helping other species become more resilient, not by changing their biology, but by teaching them to work with their own natural strengths. The military council warned us that humans would make other species too much like them, Gray said, nodding to Officer White, who sat stiffly in his protective suit. They were right, but not in the way they feared. Humans aren't changing our biology. They're changing our understanding of what's possible. New images appeared. Alien children learning human games, but adapted for their own abilities. Emergency workers from different species training together, each contributing their unique strengths. Scientists combining human durability with alien technological advances to create better protective equipment. We fear humans because they seemed too powerful, too adaptable, too strange, Gray said. We forgot something important. Evolution on their Deathworld didn't just make them strong. It made them empathetic. They know what it's like to face deadly conditions. They understand fear. And instead of using that to dominate, they use it to protect. The council chamber was silent as Gray showed the final images. The human emergency response team, still recovering from radiation sickness, was already planning their next training session. Dr. Blue's research showed how human medical techniques could be adapted for different species. Ambassador Gray's cultural exchange programs were helping aliens understand humans better, and humans understand alien limitations. I propose, Gray said firmly, that we stop fearing humans and start learning from them. Not to become like them physically, that's impossible and unnecessary, but to learn their most important trait, the desire to help others survive. The debate lasted for hours. Some species still feared humanity's potential for destruction. Others argued for closer cooperation. In the end, the council reached a decision that would change the galaxy forever. 1 month later, Jack Thompson stood in the new Galactic Emergency Response Training Center. Around him, beings from 20 different species learned how to handle crisis situations. Each brought their own strengths. Some were naturally resistant to cold. Others could fly. Some could sense danger before it happened. The humans taught them not to be exactly like Earth's inhabitants, but to use their own unique abilities to help others. In his research lab, Dr. Blue studied the latest results with amazement. Combining human medical knowledge with alien technology was producing breakthroughs no one had thought possible. Species weren't becoming more human. They were becoming better versions of themselves. And in the council chamber, Gray watched as more worlds requested human emergency response teams. Earth's Deathworld humans had become the galaxy's protectors, turning their survival abilities into a force for good. The aliens still found humans strange and sometimes frightening. They still marveled at humans drinking coffee, eating spicy food, and playing in harsh conditions. But they no longer feared Earth's Deathworld inhabitants. Instead, they were grateful for these powerful, resilient beings who had chosen to use their strength to protect rather than destroy. In the end, that was the truth about Earth's humans. They weren't monsters created by a Deathworld. They were guardians, forged by harsh conditions to become protectors of all life in the galaxy.